Hello, kiddos. So the next thing I want to talk about with you regarding the forces that make history is technology. Technology makes so much of a difference in the world. When we think of technology, we rightfully think of things like your cell phone. Like, here's my cell phone. The computer guts in this cell phone are more powerful. They can do more, they can do it faster than all the technology they used to put men on the moon in the 60s. So technology has come so far, so fast. But it's probably harder for you at your age to think about old school technology. Like there was a time where there just wasn't a gun. And we're going to talk about times when things like a bow and arrow is technology. It's something advanced that really gave the Native Americans an advantage. So as we go through technology, a few different key parts that are going to matter most to us as we study American history. First one's going to be agriculture. Okay? There are some key inventions, some key devices, even some key techniques that have allowed agriculture, farms, to really explode and to grow. And when you think about American history, if we don't have explosive growth of tobacco and then cotton in the South, slavery maybe never really catches on. Maybe we never have a civil war, and the way this country looks is a lot different. But we did have those things. As things are invented, like plows, like the cotton gin, even boat technology to move product overseas, that creates demand. So you can see how technology is going to touch so many things. It's going to touch migration or immigration because, well, it can help how we move around. It's going to touch what foods people make. There's a time where we just farmed to grow the food so we could eat it. The idea of cash crops doesn't work unless it's tied in with this transportation to get things to a different market, to different people who want to buy it. So transportation is really the next big thing. For what we're studying, we're mostly going to talk about naval technology, so boats. If the boat technology doesn't get better, there's no Columbus. So maybe when people come to America, it's far different. The locomotive. Okay, trains play this huge part in American history. They're not invented here. They're invented in England, but England's kind of a small island. America's this giant, vast place. And it's like the perfect storm because as people want to move west, they're able to really do that explosively once we get to trains. And the other thing is canals. So for a while before trains, the number one way to move anything was on rivers, but there's not rivers anywhere, so we literally developed the technology to build a river, to build these giant ditches to float boats all over in the Northeast. And that opened up trade, that created a lot more interaction of people. And that is just an example of how technology is so tied in with some of the other forces of history. Now, aside from transportation, the other biggie is weaponry. Okay? At the time the conquistadors came to the Americas, predominantly South and Central America, you've got people with stone weapons and spears being attacked by a much smaller army of the Spanish conquerors, but they have steel helmets, they have armor, they have steel swords, and they have gunpowder and guns. The native people didn't have any of that. And aside from how absolutely scary and frightening that must be, imagine what an advantage it is to have superior weaponry. It's, if you think of it in more recent terms, you know, World War II kind of ended, with Japan at least, because we dropped a nuclear bomb on them twice. They had nothing like that. No one else did in the world. That piece of technology made the entire world change forever. And that's the kind of immediate impact that can happen, especially from weaponry and technology. Now in our class, we'll talk about rifles. That's one of the big pieces of technology and weaponry that come into being. We'll talk about these ironclad ships when we get to the Civil War. which are the predecessors of modern day, battleships, destroyers, those kind of things. And even that got replaced once people developed air technology. The ability to fly made all that stuff somewhat obsolete in some ways. So technology is a big deal. It's probably the one thing you could relate to more in your life, because even though the technology we're talking about is different than it was back in the olden times, back in the days of Mr. Andrus, where I had my Apple IIe computer, it still makes a huge difference. So that's it for technology. Think about some examples of modern technology that you just can't imagine life without. And then take a second to think back, whatever it is you just thought of, people used to live without it. Simple as indoor plumbing. Wouldn't want to go back from that. Next time, we're going to talk about ecology. Pretty interesting in the area of COVID. So we'll see you then. Thank you.